I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Program highlight, sharing the good news, and we could use some of that. Dr. Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Craven and members of the board. It is my pleasure to be the person that gets to share with you today our program highlight. And oftentimes in board meetings, we have the opportunity to talk about the extraordinary work that's going on in the school system. You're able to hear about the work that's taking place. You're able to visit the schools in advance of our meeting times. But I want to take the opportunity to share a little bit about that with you and actually let you see some of the extraordinary things that are taking place in our school system and talk to you about some of those elements. Because I think these visuals are powerful reminders of where we are and what we do. Not to mention that as we embark on the month of October, we're actually closing in on the end of the first quarter. So the first 9 weeks of our school year is coming to a close October 22nd. And so it's an opportunity for us to just show with you in pictures some of the work that's happening here. And October is an important month because October is the month that we recognize principals. It is actually National Principal Month, and we think about the men and women that serve in our school system and lead our schools. We do not have a rival, in my opinion, when it comes to leaders in our school system across our state and across our nation. And I'm so proud to recognize these individuals who lead each of our institutions with grace and empathy, integrity, and passion for their school communities. And so we celebrate them this month of October and say thank you to the men and women who lead in our schools. One such woman is Dr. Marcia Justice, and we had the opportunity to recognize her as the Henderson County Principal of the Year. And you can see here as Dr. Justice is making her way down, celebrating with her students. You can't hear it, but in the background there are bagpipes playing right now. And if you saw this on Twitter, Ken Potter, a custodian who serves that school community, actually played the bagpipes as we honored and recognized Dr. Justice, celebrating alongside her family. You can see one of her sons in the background there. Really brought to tears the honor of the Edneyville family, someone who truly leads with an all-in mentality. And so we're really proud that Dr. Justice represents us. And again, a powerfully visual reminder of what we do and how we do it. We do it well. Another example of that is Miss Amanda Glover. Miss Glover was recently recognized as the EC Teacher of the Year on behalf of our school system. You see Dr. Jennifer Shelton and John Hart, principal at Glen Marlow Elementary School, sharing this recognition with Mrs. Glover. Again, when we can highlight the amazing work of our educators, we love to celebrate that work. Here's another such educator. This is us again out at Edneyville Elementary School. This recognition is for Miss Haley Stayton. Haley is our beginning Teacher of the Year. And as we shared with Haley, Haley not only is an extraordinary servant to her students, but the men and women who are choosing education right now, choosing to be in classrooms in service to their school communities, is a pretty powerful reminder. And she is a true rock star for our school system. And we were really proud to recognize her, celebrate with her in that regard. I did mention Dr. Justice, so they have the Principal of the Year at Edneyville Elementary School. They have the Beginning Teacher of the Year at Edneyville Elementary School. And when we recognize Teacher of the Year in the spring, if that individual is from Edneyville, that will be the trifecta. They will be the first group to have recognized all three of those together. October and last week was an opportunity to recognize the men and women who serve in our school systems, caring for the school buildings, the facilities, and really helping to build community. Often the glue people that we think of are custodians and those folks that serve in that way. And so we had all kinds of recognition for our custodians across the school system last week. You see thank you cards on the right. You see students celebrating and recognizing. You see individual letters and notes written to those folks. Recognize how important they are to our school and our school environments. And in a time like we faced most recently, the importance of clean and safe environments becomes all that more heightened. And the men and women that do that job and show up to do that job every day should be recognized. We had special events taking place in our school community. You can see here migrant families coming together for fellowship and time together, sharing a meal and celebrating our students and lifting up the relationships that are important in a school community. This is Hillendale Elementary School, Flat Rock Middle School, and East Henderson High School, and all those communities together and celebrating together the importance of connectivity for our students and families. Among my favorite pictures is when I see our students learning together and learning outside. This is Muddy Sneakers, an opportunity for our students to experience outdoor education opportunities. It's an opportunity that's extended to our 5th grade students. Where again, they're learning, and they're learning in directed science curriculum and outdoor education spaces, really tying the relevance of that learning to the spaces that they're in, making them good stewards of not just our greater community, but our entire environment. And it's pretty special to see when you see the students, this level of engagement when you look at the pictures that are taking place here. This is the kind of work that we're looking forward to existing all the time and every day. And we're particularly proud of this because this is really an extension in so many ways, not just of a program that has been a part of our school system for some time, but much like you saw in our summer programming and our summer learning, creating those hands-on experiential learning opportunities for our students. So pretty special stuff here. The board's familiar with this one as well, but it's a big one to celebrate. Our grade 2 students began safety around water education based on our partnership with the YMCA of Hendersonville. That's every 2nd grade student receiving life-saving instruction about how to take care of themselves when they're around water spaces. And the level of joy on these students' faces, their experience, what we've heard from their teachers and from the volunteers at the YMCA that are making this possible has just been nothing short of exceptional. And so we're proud of this partnership. This was a priority of the board to create an opportunity that said, we want you to learn, but we want you to learn something that's going to care for you and serve you for the rest of your life. And so when we talk about what this might mean moving forward, it's a pretty exciting visual representation there. As I mentioned, we also get to visit schools. We get to see learning and leadership in action. You see here Mr. Bridges and Ms. Caskey along with Mr. Taylor and 2 of our finest young school leaders at Fletcher Elementary School holding court. We talk about seeing young people be the leaders in their school environment, and we're so proud that that was represented in this space at our visit to Fletcher Elementary School. Our school system family, though, is bigger and broader than just our school system and those spaces within it. You can see here John Murphy from Bullington Farms, Summer Stipe from the Education Foundation, members of the board and family at Bullington. They are part of our extended school system family. And there was a period of time where Johnson Farm and Bullington Farm and the Education Foundation were all sort of a blended organization. They have continued to grow and expand and serve our community in so many different ways that they're now each of their own independent organizations. And here you see them celebrating the Garden with the Heart and passing that on as they continue their property development at Bullington. This is among my favorite sets of pictures from this entire school year. And the young lady on the right, this is one I hope to one day have framed and on my wall. What this represents are kindergarten students receiving their class of t-shirts, class of 2034. That's when these 5-year-olds will graduate from Henderson County Public Schools. Not only is this an immensely popular moment with the students and their families, but here's what we've heard. There was a period of time where some of our students didn't receive their class of jerseys because this program actually stopped for a period of time in our school system. And I'm so proud that this board has brought this back, recognizing the power of community partnerships and sharing the journey with these 5-year-olds about where they will go. But we're hearing from other students, they said, hey, can you pick us up? What about getting us our class of t-shirts? We want to make sure that every student in our school system graduates with that senior class t-shirt together. And again, this young lady on the right, if it gets cuter than that, I'm not aware of it. Like, that is just among the sweetest things in our school system. The second that you see here, the picture on the left is proof that Mr. Rhodes works. So what you see is Mr. Rhodes guiding somebody at Flat Rock Middle School through the locker process, helping him see where that takes place. Again, when we think about our 6th grade students and the orientation associated with it, it's interesting that we hear year over year that the locker experience can be among the most stressful and anxiety-ridden parts of their middle school experiences. So Mr. Rhodes, a veteran middle school administrator, serving and supporting a student there. This is me visiting a classroom at Atkinson Elementary School, and again, highly engaged students in those spaces. The picture on the left represents a program that this board invested in, supported in, teaching as a profession. This is a listing, the notes from class with those students sharing with their teachers what the rewards are of being an educator. You see number 1, changing lives. You see number 4, you get to celebrate milestones. 8, feeding creativity. 10, creating lasting memories. And of course, the opportunity to teach and serve every day. And you see one of our finest teachers here, Miss Andrea Smith, with a student as we talk about not just embodying the profession, but motivating, serving, and planting those seeds. That's a pretty special slide right there. Again, here are our students hard at work, and again, love to sell. I don't love candy corn, but if you can make it part of math, that's something that's really valuable there. So you see students working in that space. You see students in our woodworking opportunity. You see students in the chrysalis and the example of the science learning. You see them working collaboratively on graphic organizers. These high levels of engagement occurring across our school system day after day after day. A true credit to our teaching staff, to our students, and to our school families. Again, when you look at our students and the engagement in those spaces and the representations of their learning, we simply want to celebrate the reason that we are here and the reason that we're here every day. And I want to finish with this slide for a particular reason. This is Ryan Mitchell, our current Henderson County Teacher of the Year. And you see him with his family, and you also see him being celebrated by the students at Mills River Elementary. But I added this slide just today, just before this presentation, for a very specific reason. As you know, he is Henderson County's Teacher of the Year, which means that he competes regionally for Region 8 Teacher of the Year. And we learned just before this board meeting that Ryan is one of the finalists for Region 8 Teacher of the Year. And so we celebrate for Ryan, and we say congratulations. Again, a true model for what professional teaching and learning looks like in Henderson County Public Schools. And again, the program highlight today is about recognizing that there is so much that we say, there is so much that we hear about what takes place in our school system. I think it's also important to see and feel what that is as well. And so it's been my pleasure to share that with you. Glad to answer any questions the board might have about the highlight.
Questions for Dr. Bryant? Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
All right, next up is going to be board chair observations. I have none today. We're going to move on to board member observations.
Yes, I have an observation.
Mr. Bridges,
And I'd
please.
like to direct this to the public in attendance today. Thank you for being here and willing to participate in our board meetings. The latest news regarding board members who have been verbally attacked is not something I've seen at our meetings. Each parent has a right to voice his or her opinion and concern. I respect your comments, have not felt threatened or harassed, and cringe at the term domestic terrorist being attributed to parents and citizens concerned for all the children we serve. Your constitutional right to publicly voice your concern is important, and your attendance is certainly welcome. As your elected Board of Education, we have some difficult decisions to make at times, and our goal is to make the best decisions for the children. Your input is appreciated, and if you did not love your children or care about Henderson County schools, you wouldn't be here. So thank you for attending.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Ms. Case?
Going back to Haley's step, she and Shanice Hill, last year's Ricky teacher, are both of them products of Henderson County Schools. I think that's pretty awesome that they come back here and teach.
So I had a comment, but Robert just stole it, so I'll just let him speak. I was going to say the same thing. Well said.
Whiteside? All right. If there's no other observations, we're going to move on to public comments. Let me pull up my email here. We have 20 public commenters today, so we're going to do a minute and a half for each of those comments. Mrs. Alfrey sent me the digital submissions, and I'm going to break those down for you. We had 45 people email us for a public comment to keep the mask mandate as is. We had 7 send an email stating they would like to end the mask mandate, 1 to remove Stacy Caskey, 1 in support of Stacy Caskey, 1 and unmask and remove Stacy Caskey, miscommunication between AVMS, Apple Valley Middle School, and Blue Ridge Health, info to consider while making masking decisions. There was 1 of those. There was 1 that said they were anti-quarantine, anti-mask, anti-hypocrisy, anti-fake science. 1 regarding bus driver pay, and 1 thank you to the board. So those were our digital submissions that were opened this week. And as I stated, we have 20 public comments. And first up is going to be Anthony Cantanilla. Welcome, sir. Yeah, with a sound check. I know, walk-up music. You can keep your mask on, thank you.
Keep it on?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't said anything yet, but give me a minute. Hard to follow Mr. Bryant. He's a very polished speaker, but I'll do my best. Good afternoon, board members. I want to thank you first for the time you put into probably not the most rewarding period of time to be serving, but thank you. I appreciate it. I think many of us do. However, I don't agree with many things. So my name is Anthony Catania. I'm a resident of Mills River, have children in Henderson County Public School, and I am not a domestic terrorist. The concern of parents, students, and teachers is, in a word, choice. I simply ask the board, regardless of your political affiliation, to lead. Recognize the responsibility of the family, not the state, to make choices for our children. Choices as regards emotional, social, and medical decisions. Be leaders. Convince your colleagues to respect the family's right to choose optional masking, optional COVID vaccination, and reject CRT and social emotional learning. How have we gotten to this point where the word mandate is a constant refrain, where the state knows what's best for you, where fear is promulgated at the expense of freedom? When you are afraid, you are vulnerable, so you welcome the siren call of the state protecting you in its warm embrace. This should be frightening to each of us. We should all agree that with freedom comes risk and responsibility. Please lead the way to a bright future.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we'll have Sarah Cosgrove, followed by Sarah Smith. Welcome, Ms. Cosgrove.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the board and Mr. Superintendent, I come before you in peace today to express sincere gratitude for your continued commitment to the safe and high-quality education for the children of Henderson County. It is not my intention to burn bridges or create added stress. I sympathize with what you're facing. Thank you. I'm a mother of 4, a business owner, registered unaffiliated voter, taxpayer, property owner, and community supporter here in Henderson County. I also have several autoimmune diseases and a child with asthma. My ask today is that you please keep masks mandatory in K-12 schools. I ask for the families and teachers who don't have the health option to unmask. I ask for the families who don't have the privilege to homeschool or to go virtual. Our kids are happy at school. In-person learning is necessary, and providing a lower transmission, lower spread, lower quarantine environment with mandatory masks is an effective solution until those who desire to can vaccinate. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Smith, followed by Beth Campbell. Ms. Smith.
Hello, I'm Sarah Smith. I have a daughter at Bruce Drysdale and a son who will be starting next year. I personally see masks as a sign of respect to them rather than a sign of oppression. Masks are not ideal. They're sometimes uncomfortable, but I willingly wear them for the overall health of our community. I'm hoping to do my part to keep them healthy. I'm deeply saddened to hear about the threats you all are receiving. There aren't enough words to adequately express the gratitude many of us feel for your service during this complicated time. My plea is now to continue to require masks in public schools until those who choose can safely vaccinate their children. The latest news states that our younger children may be able to receive their first dose the first week of November. Many can be fully vaccinated by Christmas. Thank you for all you do to keep our kids in schools and our communities as safe as possible.
Thank you. Beth Campbell, followed by Katie Gash. Welcome, Ms. Campbell.
And that picture could be so much cuter, Dr. Bryant, if we could have seen her precious face, every one of them. I am a North Carolina citizen for constitutional rights. We, the people of Western North Carolina and Henderson County, have tried our best to give you every opportunity to do the right thing and end these mask mandates, end the unlawful quarantine that has been going on in our schools. We're asking you one final time to please do the right thing, because we're not really sure how aware you are of what you have been doing to these kids. And are you sure that you actually haven't made a huge mistake? Because we are giving you one last chance to please do the right thing, end these mandates, stop the unlawful quarantining, and don't even bring up the idea of vaccination mandates in the future, because it's not going to work. We, the people, will hold each and every single one of you individually and as a whole, including Mr. Superintendent and Mr. Steve Smith, criminally and civilly liable. You might think that we're a bunch of angry soccer moms, but we've done our research. And Miss Caskey, angry, scary soccer moms don't like being bullied.
Ms. Gash, followed by, I think Indiana Smith? India Smith?
Well, first of all, good afternoon. And I just wanted to say that we the people includes me, and that previous speaker did not speak on my behalf. Their chairman, school board members, superintendent, and district leaders. My name is Katie Gash. I'm a math teacher at Hendersonville Middle, and I love my kids dearly. Mr. Bridges, thank you for welcoming me. I do love my kids, and that is why I'm here. Like my fellow staff members, I am dedicated, I am hardworking, and I'm resilient. I am committed, but I'm also extremely overwhelmed and tired. I am working harder than I have ever before in my life. I am stretched to the brink of what I'm physically and professionally and emotionally equipped for. I am certainly stretched beyond what I am paid for, but I am not alone. But you know what keeps me going? My kids. Because of the mask and safety requirements implemented by this board, we are finally together in the classroom for an extended period of time. We are learning in productive and nurturing spaces. Every one of my students is fed. Every one of my students is safe. Every one of my students is happy to be among peers. Learning virtually is very lonely, very unmotivating, and far, far from ideal. I teach 110 students each day, and we are in this together. We wear our masks to protect the least of these among us. The vast majority of my students willingly, kindly, humbly, and appropriately wear their masks without issue and without complaint. We are in this together. Masks won't last always, but for now, may we stay the course. Thank you.
India Smith, followed by Courtney McCall. Welcome. Hold on 1 second. Do you see that green button right there in that mic? Yeah, will you push that for me? Make sure it's lit up real green.
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Get 3 minutes to speak since you're a student.
Okay, thank you. When I was asked to speak about the mask mandate situation, I was more than willing to do so. I know masks may not be the most ideal situation, but I do believe that it will help stop the spread of COVID. At the high school, kids are sent home almost every week, and it's the same at the middle school. It's very unfortunate to see students sent home because someone around them got COVID due to their mask being down. Many of my friends' parents don't have the luxury to stay home from work to be with their children because people are being irresponsible. Today, I'm here with my mother, who is a nursing student, and I think it is important to all try to help out the healthcare workers by wearing our mask. Lastly, I would like to say that masks are not my favorite, or probably not anyone's. but I do believe that we should put up with this small inconvenience to protect ourselves and the ones around us. If we all do our part by complying with the rules that are in place for our safety, we may soon be able to get back to some normalcy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Courtney McCall, followed by Melissa Holland. Welcome, Ms. McCall.
According to the last health department meeting, we have quarantined 659 students. Of those, 251 ended up testing positive for COVID. What's interesting is that of those 251 students, only 46 actually contracted COVID at school. The others contracted the virus from a family member or from somewhere outside the school setting. 46 out of 659. On page 16 of the NC Toolkit, it states schools should follow the recommendations of their local public health department regarding quarantine. Local public health authorities make the final decisions about how long quarantine should last in the communities they serve based on local conditions and needs. Clearly, we don't have a need for this much quarantining, so I'm not sure why we're not changing this. When the first thing I hear my students say when they get off the bus for a field trip is, "Yay, I can breathe," or "Yes, oxygen," I know we've failed. I refuse to be a mask Nazi or the mask police. I'm there day after day, working with them one-on-one and in small groups to try and get them caught up since we denied them in-person learning for part of 2 years. I'm there each morning giving my kids hugs and high fives. If you're too afraid to be around a child without their face covered, keep your mask on. Stay home. Shut yourself away. I don't care. You have that choice. Give me my students, get out of my room, and let me teach. I'm here to let you know that we are not going away. We're not backing down, and we will never stop fighting for our kids. We will be here at every meeting, speaking, writing, calling, and letting you know that we, the people, are here to stay. And if wanting my kids to be able to breathe freely makes me a bully parent, so be it.
Melissa Holland, followed by Aaron Fischler. Welcome, Ms. Holland.
It cannot be stressed enough that the Secretary of Department of Health, Human Resources, or the local health department must order the control measures to be implemented to address an imminent hazard. North Carolina General Statute 130A-20A, without an official chapter 130A order, the county school board should not implement the toolkit since its constituents control measures, which have not been officially ordered under the statute. This places the school board at significant risk of legal liability since they are in violation of Chapter 130A and individuals' fundamental constitutional rights. Such decisions will likely be found to be a manifest of abuse, a discrimination, discretion, particularly where the control measures are harming children, as in the case here. When someone is quarantined verbally or written by the health department only and by the director, they have to be notified that they have the legal right in Superior Court to have this looked at within 72 hours of filing. Thank you so much, and I hope that you guys all know your legal liability.
Aaron Fischler, followed by Indiana Jackson. Welcome, Mr. Fischler.
Thank you. And thank you all. This is my third time being able to speak with you, and I appreciate the opportunity. As I'm sure Dr. Bryant is aware, the CDC recently came out with a new study going over the efficacy of masks in schools. 3 reports were done, and all 3 reports showed that school districts that allowed optional masks were 3.5 times more likely to have COVID outbreaks versus schools that do mandate masks. As a clinical practitioner at Mission Hospital, I can tell you that about 12% of our hospital is full of COVID patients. Many of them are very critically ill, and we are really struggling to keep up. It is getting better, as I'm sure we're all aware. However, I don't think right now would be the time to drop the mask mandates. We are getting close to that time where we will be able to drop mask mandates, but for now, I think they need to stay in place. The sign says they need to stay in place, and our kids deserve to be safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Indiana Jackson, followed by Donald Black. Welcome, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, let me just start right here. All right. So I was asked by a board member, what exactly do you want us to contact you about? All right. Because, you know, last time I've been speaking about diversity and inclusion. So here's my answer. Kyron Gibson, he's a Hendersonville native. He has a book about generational wealth that is tailored to children of color. How can we get this book in our classrooms? Black History Month is coming. How can we bring updated, accurate education to our Henderson County school system classrooms for those 28 days? There's a committee called DICE, Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, that could offer creative, alternate solutions to your issues with teaching CRT, critical race theory. We're asking you all to contact us to tackle these issues of the misguided teachings in our schools so we can once and for all end racism. Just stop contributing to racism and let's get on board, school board. I made that part up. That was awesome. But anyways, y'all have a good one.
Donald Black, followed by Sarah Hudson. Welcome, sir.
So, first off, about the mask thing.
We're giving you 3 minutes, sorry.
Okay.
Continue.
First off, I think the adults that are complaining about the mask stuff, I think it's just childish. For the most part, we're just fine with these masks. And we'll survive. However, it's not really what I'm here to talk about. What I'm really here to talk about is diversity. In history classes or social studies, we need to include the fact that history that's told by the Pilgrims or whoever told it is outdated and or a lie.
Please don't interrupt our speakers, please.
So, the government thinks that if everyone were to know about the truth of what happened, like how the natives just fought back to protect their land, then we may end up starting some sort of rally, which likely isn't true. We can at least reform it into something better in a country of truth rather than lies. If it weren't for the way that history is being taught now, that the natives just weren't friendly, that was only the case after their food and supplies was just getting stolen. So maybe if it was taught in a better way, then racism probably wouldn't be too much of a problem right now. All right, and that's about it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Sarah Hudson, followed by Jay Carey. Welcome, Ms. Hudson.
What we're looking at right now is I work in special education. Lots of times we wear these masks so our kids can see us speak. That picture you're looking at, if you look closely, that was after 45 minutes of wearing that mask. Look at all the condensation, saliva, whatever that is on this plastic after 45 minutes. That is what our kids are breathing in and sucking in all day. That was a coworker of mine. That's not me. She sent me that picture because she believes in non-masking also. I've talked to quite a few of you on the phone or email or whatever, and I feel like you guys are not going to change your mind until the quarantine policies are changed. So for that, I'm asking for you guys to do the right thing and fight the health department or whoever else to get the quarantine changed. Because I work in a high school, I see this every day. I'm sorry, but the teachers that are saying that these kids wear these masks properly all day, I'm not seeing it at all. I see it on the ground. I see them swinging them. There was a child in Henderson County who dropped his mask in the toilet and was so scared of getting in trouble that he picked it up, washed it off, and put it back on his face. That is disgusting. This has got to stop. When is it going to stop? I'm tired of my child who has asthma and comes out of PE class with his mask down, getting yelled at by a teacher that's not even his teacher down the hallway. It's got to stop. We're not going to put up with this much longer. Do what you need to do. Be more like Union County. Go against somebody. If you truly believe the masks don't work, do something about it.
Jay Carey, followed by Kelly Spinks.
Thank you for the chance to speak tonight. My name's Jay Carey. I'm the Democratic candidate for North Carolina's 11th District. But more importantly, I'm here as a father with 2 boys that attend public school in Hendersonville. Thank you again for maintaining the mask mandate. I would like to suggest an alternative to mandating masks in the school under the current system. I'd like to suggest that you make the face mask part of the dress code. This would enable... Eddie!
Hey, listen. We're all going to stop this or everybody can go out. Do we understand? Does everybody understand what I just said? Continue, please.
Thank you, sir. This would enable you to not have to vote on it monthly, reconsidering only when the pandemic is declared in remission by the CDC and the North Carolina Department of Health. I am not aware of any provisions that would keep you from being able to do this. This will allow you to concentrate on other important matters and get back to a more normal meeting schedule without having to debate the mask mandates monthly. Once again, thank you for everything that you do during these trying times.
Kelly Spinks, followed by Phil Haney, I believe. Hannah?
Hello, I'm Kelly Spinks. I'd like to thank the board, the teachers, healthcare workers. Thank you. I have a child at Hendersonville Middle School. She's here, and she supports masks and wears them very easily every day. She's also had COVID. We found out 2 days after she had spent time with her great-grandmother, my grandmother. It was a very scary time. We didn't know if she had given it to her or not. So I totally support wearing masks to ensure our most vulnerable and older generations are protected. Please vote to keep masks mandatory. Thank you for your time.
Phil Hannah, followed by Sophie Fernandez. I said your last name right, sir. Hannah, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Phil Hanna, and I am a homeowner and taxpayer in Henderson County. I went to school from kindergarten to 2 years of college in New York, and my heart, I'm here to just speak for a moment because my heart is breaking. The more I see this nonsense going on in our country and the news and whatever, it's just heartbreaking, especially when it comes to our kids. I went to school for all those years, and everybody I knew went to school for all those years. And many, many more people than just that went to school for all those years. And we never even dreamed of wearing a mask. It was never brought up. And guess what? We all made it. So are you honestly saying to yourself, can you convince yourself that all those many, many years and millions of people squeezed through by some miracle? No, this is ridiculous. My wife is a 40-year intensive care nurse, and she knows that this is just nonsense. This young woman, Grace something or other, that was handcuffed by police and arrested for not wearing a mask. Think of that. You guys love kids, or you wouldn't be in your job. That's horrible. And this critical race theory and all this other stuff, please, do the right thing. This is nonsense.
Sophie Fernandez, followed by Richard Shosny.
I think I get,
Yes, ma'am. 3 minutes, please.
hello everyone, my name is Sofia Fernandez. I'm a junior at Hendersonville High School. I'm a secretary for my class office. I'm also part of the leadership program, and I want to talk about how I think it's important we continue wearing our masks at school. The mask only helps to not spread it to others. It also helps to protect yourself, but it helps more to not spread the virus to others. And as a student that is involved in many activities at my school, I don't have the chance to miss school days. Well, I can make up work, but preferably I will not quarantine. But I understand that if I get COVID because my classmate wasn't wearing their mask correctly, I'll have to do it. Also, we need to understand that there's many students or many classmates of mine who go home and they have little brothers or little sisters that are not vaccinated yet. Also, that their parents cannot miss a day of work because they are not privileged and they need to make money. So if accidentally they get COVID because somebody wasn't wearing the mask, they don't have the chance to miss work. Also, I understand that that you can get COVID outside of the school, but if we can make us feel safe as possible during the school hours, I will appreciate it. And I also want to thank you guys for making us wear a mask correctly these past 9 weeks because I've been feeling safe at school. I'm glad that I'm going back to in-person school. Online school was really bad. So I appreciate it and thank you for keeping us safe.
Richard Shosny, followed by Bill Miller. Welcome, sir.
Dick Shaughnessy, thanks for allowing me time to speak. I'm going to ramble a bit, perhaps. I like this slide. 2023 on the young people, I think that's wonderful. That's a goal right there on their heart. Masks destroyed the impact of that picture to me. The masks are abuse on young people. I hate to see it. Many of the reasons that have been discussed here, look, clearly we're divided. I respect every opinion, almost every opinion that was expressed tonight, with one clear exception. But this is such a divisive issue. You have to ask, one side right? One side right. Can there be two right answers? And do you folks have a choice to not wear a mask? I'm curious. Could you come in here without your mask if you chose to? Thank you for your comments. We're here for the right reasons. We have concerns for the right reasons. We believe in liberty and freedom and the parental choice. This is a choice issue, folks. This is not a mandate issue. We're adults. We think, we discern. We get our wisdom from whatever source we pick to be the best source of that wisdom, and then we make decisions and judgments for ourselves, the best ones we can make, the best ones we can make for our kids. Let us make those decisions. Don't you make them. You're going to get into some serious, serious trouble. I can see it coming. Thank you.
Bill Miller, followed by Sheila Dole. Mr. Miller.
My name's Bill Miller, and I'm a resident in Henderson County and have been for the past 7 years. I'm an engineer by profession and somewhat interested in scientific things. I've been concerned about the mandate of masking for children because I have grandchildren, and I see all the children in playgrounds and stuff around with masks on, and I believe they're ineffective. That's what the studies have said for decades, that they weren't effective in restricting virus transmission. I've brought a copy of the JAMA, that's the Journal of American Medical Association's article of a study that was done in Germany with 25,930 children, and 68% of them, after wearing a mask, were having health problems. I've brought a couple of copies if you'd like to see that. A couple other concerns that are very important is that I think people should be made aware of the VAERS. It's a Vaccine Adverse Effects Reporting System. There's a whole lot of health problems coming out from masking and the vaccine itself, not the mask, but the vaccines. So I would urge the board to really strongly look into that before, if you decide to start promoting vaccine mandates. Also, I'd like to end by saying, Luke 17, it says, if it would better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck and cast into the sea, then he should offend one of these little ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final comments, Sheila Dole. I think it's Dolldall. Sheila? Welcome, Ms. Sheila. You can hand it to our attorney.
Assuming it was emailed to you. I reiterate and agree with everything they have said. I've watched the atrocities of this board pass their fear onto 5-year-olds. Your fear of lawsuit, your fear of man, your fear of COVID, your fears, all of your fears passed onto the backs of 5-year-olds up to 18-year-olds. This is utterly ridiculous. Mrs. Holt, you are exempt from that. You might want to read it. Have a good day.
That concludes our public comments for the day. Well, and what was your name, ma'am? Come on. Yes, ma'am. Minute and a half, thank you.
Right. I'm aware, along with a lot of the folks, that you have received this letter from Attorney Saradini. And I'm here to give it to you again today, so it's on the record that you have received this. Today I demand all of the Henderson County School Board demand of Steve Smith, the Henderson County Public Health Director, to produce the science that proves without a doubt that SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus has ever been isolated, purified, sequenced, characterized, or proven to exist, proves the efficacy of masks, proves the efficacy of quarantining, proves the efficacy of distancing 6 feet apart, proves that the PCR test gives an accurate, reliable, and true result, proves we need a vaccine, proves the vaccine is safe and effective in the spread of the virus, proves that ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and other treatments are not effective treatments for the virus, and proves that lockdowns work. I am also including my comments because I'm handing you so you know exactly what science he needs to produce. I demand of this school board that Steve Smith produce to you and we the people at the next school board meeting, November 8th, 2021, this science that I and we the people are asking for. And I also demand of this school board that in the event he doesn't come to the November 8th school board meeting with that science, you will completely lift in the meeting, November 8th, 2021, all mandates for masking, quarantining, and anything having to do with the vaccine, including vaccine passports that you may have already have in mind. Remember, according to Attorney Saradini's letter, you were involved in criminal and fraudulent activities. Remember, the eyes of the world are upon you, and we the people stand against this tyranny, and we are holding you accountable. Thank you.
I believe that concludes our public comments. All right, moving on. Consent agenda. I will take a motion to approve that, but after we approve this consent agenda, I will ask, I know Ms. Case had asked to read the resolution on the American Education Week, and I'll ask some others to read some of the other resolutions. So I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent is approved. Okay. All right, Ms. Case, if you would, read the resolution for the American Education Week, please. Whenever you have a second.
Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, whether teachers or custodians, media coordinators, bus drivers, administrators, or child nutrition workers, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are the cornerstones of the community, bringing together children and adults, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise to work together to make our public schools great for every child. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Henderson County Board of Public Education that November 15th through 19th, 2021, be observed by Henderson County Public Schools as American Education Week, adopted this 12th day of October 2021.
Case. Next is National Homeless. I'd like to take the Veterans Month, so if I could have someone who would like to read that, please. Yes, please.
Resolution honoring the observance of National Homeless Youth Awareness Month. Whereas the month of November is designated National Awareness Month, and whereas this designation declared U.S. House and Senate 2007 serves as an outlet, an ongoing issue occurring in every city across the United States. And whereas the nation's public in 2019 reported one in grades pre-K through 12th grade. And whereas we realize that adolescents become homeless, homes for various reasons, often putting them in precarious situations, and that school is often the most safe and stable environment for these youth. And whereas we recognize that of the approximately 21,635 youth aged 18 or younger living in approximately 1.5 are known homeless students served by our. And whereas the Homeless Education Linked program provides assistance to homeless students and remove barriers to education, ensure academic goals, and whereas homelessness in the finds to present significant and we recognize stable quality education the potential to break the cycle. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County of the observed national adopted.
Thank you, Ms. Cat. The final one we have, final resolution, is honoring the observance of Veterans History Awareness Month. Whereas the month of November is designated as Veterans History Awareness Month in North Carolina, and whereas this designation was declared by the North Carolina General Assembly in 2017 to increase student understanding of the meaning and importance of the contributions of American veterans, and North Carolina veterans in particular, and whereas the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs estimates that North Carolina is home to 698,183 veterans, with an estimated 9,392 veterans in Henderson County, and whereas of our local veterans, 17% served during the global war on terrorism, 36% served during the Vietnam War, 4% served during the Korean War, and fewer than 1% of our veterans of World War I. And whereas our students can learn valuable historical and societal lessons through relationships with local veterans and collaboration with veterans service organizations, now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County Board of Public Education that the month of November be observed as Veterans History Awareness Month, adopted this 12th day of October 2021. All right, thank you. Next up is old business. We have none. And we are going to move on to new business, which is the current face covering guidance and policy. Dr. Bryant?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Craven, and members of the board. As you are well aware, under state law now, we are required to vote on the current guidance at least once a month during our regularly scheduled meeting or otherwise. As we've done in the past, Mr. Craven, it's the board's pleasure. I'm glad to move directly to return to learn so that you have the data sets first, and then you could utilize those, and then we can come back to the action item. Does that work?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So we'll go to the return to learn report, and we'll work through specifically the information that we've looked at each time that this board has met. Wait for that to be queued up. So very much. So again, the slide deck that we're familiar with, we start with the Harvard Global Health Institute information in which we're tracking a community transmission. Again, as we reported in our September board meeting, we continue to see that information trend down from its peak in mid-September. So continue to see very positive information as it relates to that. You note that today, data reporting for transmission in our community is 33, noted at the end of this particular slide. The perspective on this as it relates to when we met in August of 2019, you can see the slope of the line as it relates to what we were seeing across the country and across the state at that particular time. This is that same graphic from September the 9th where we started to see things peak and potentially start to make a turn. Then in our most recent screenshot here, again, you can see the trend data and community health data trending down. So all positive signs as it relates to transmission in our communities and tracking that particular data. Additionally, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services has a county alert system report. Again, this was the transition from the alert dashboard that was published previously. We've looked at this on a couple of occasions. This is that most recent data set. You'll notice that, again, North Carolina still is considered to be in the high transmission, remembering that high transmission is 25 or higher. And again, our number is 33 right now. So while trending in the right direction, we still remain to see what's considered to be high transmission rates based on those data sets. With regard to district-wide communications and our district-wide data tracking, we have been publishing our COVID dashboard, again, available on our website, publicly available and regularly updated with each additional business day. I'm going to make one noted change here. We communicated on Friday to all HCPS families that we have been making daily alert call notifications for every single positive case in every single school. Again, we're proud that that data set continues to decline. We're glad that we see that data moving down. But we've notified school communities that that daily call notification is going to sunset on October 22nd. That's the end of the first quarter. We certainly received feedback, and we've talked about it in this room before, about over-communication. Those calls have become a bit like white noise as it relates to folks saying, like, yes, we get it. We understand that there are cases in the schools. So we want to make sure that we honor and recognize the intended district-wide communications and school-level communications. So we will continue district-wide cluster notifications if they're necessary, because there's a statutory requirement to provide that information. We will continue to update the dashboard online for anybody that's interested in school-affected cases and tracking that information. And of course, we also weekly look at the quarantine numbers associated with all those, and we'll look at that slide right at the end. I want to share with the board that this work will be taking place Friday, October 2nd. Again, this slide is an infographic that we've seen for some time as it relates to what communication we do provide to our community and that which we don't. In terms of our current operations, and as I mentioned earlier, we currently are operating under the guidance that face coverings are required in all indoor settings. That's all indoor extracurricular activities related to that, all locations, all properties. In terms of what that looks like across the state of North Carolina, we've shared with this board what the guidance is in other places. This is a regularly tracked data set by the North Carolina School Boards Association, and you can see in North Carolina where face coverings are optional, where they're required, and then where they're required in certain or specific grade level areas, and that is as of October the 8th. Specifically to Senate Bill 654, and this is the reference to the new business item, As it stands right now, local school districts are required to both have a policy regarding face covering and vote on it once a month. Required to do so each time that we meet as to making a determination as to whether or not that should be modified or continued as it stands. These slides are the same as you've seen before. I'll go back and note that the toolkit was updated on October 5th just to make it more consistent with guidance that's being implemented across the state. Again, the key considerations here are the current toolkit talks about should and could, giving recommendations to schools and school systems to make operational, flexible decision-making and planning for different scenarios. Again, these slides are those that you have seen repeatedly. And you note that the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services strongly advises that school leaders adopt all the strategies in the should sections. There are a series of them that are not applicable here in Henderson County right now. And we've reminded our public and our employees and the board repeatedly of what is not happening according to those recommendations. Number one, we do not require teachers and staff to report vaccination status. We do not require teachers and staff who are unvaccinated or do not disclose that status to participate in a screening or testing program right now, and we have not implemented such a strategy. As this board is well aware, we continue to explore what those options are should the board decide that that's an appropriate step at some point. But as it stands right now, vaccination status of teachers and students and staff are not requirements of our current operations. In the toolkit, we talk about quarantining, how it's defined, and again, what the exceptions to this are. I won't reread those to the board, but we have been tracking at this board's direction the weekly quarantining numbers. And you'll note from the most recent week, you see on Monday, 6 total positive cases in our schools and then the resulting quarantines associated with them. When you look at the weekly total in the far right and we talk about the quarantine impact associated with the school system, I shared with you that at the very beginning of the school year, that ratio was almost 1 to 2. At our most recent operations, it was 1 to 1, and as you can see right here, it's less than that. It's about 0.7 right now. So fewer than one student being quarantined for each result positive case associated with that. Specific to some quarantining numbers that are of interest to the board, because this board has talked some about that, about tracking positive cases and then positive cases who are in the quarantine group. The Henderson County Department of Public Health shared this particular slide. This is just a screenshot of the slide that was shared to the Board of Commissioners. And again, you can see since July 9th, there have been 617 total positive cases, 596 among students, resulting 659 student quarantines. And then again, at that particular time, the ratio was 0.9. So again, just about 1 to 1 in terms of our overall operations. And of that number, 38% ultimately resulted in positivity. So of the quarantine group, 38% resulted in a positivity. And when they track that back to where they believe the transmission to occur, you can see that about 2/3 of that group was considered to be from household contacts, about 15% community contact, and just shy of 20% school-related. In terms of the school system operations, as we've talked about, this again is a slide that this board is very familiar with since July of 2020, that our planning models are fluid and contingent on local health data, which we're tracking regularly, continues to be in partnership with our Department of Public Health partner agencies, the guidance at the state level, and then our instructional obligations for all students. Be glad to pause right there and answer any questions that the board might have about these data or the information that's being presented.
Questions from the board?
Thank you, sir. So that would move us then back to new business for the board's determination on the current guidance for face coverings and a determination as to we move forward.
Just personally seeing that, I mean, it seems like the numbers are going down. That seems good. I hope that trend continues. I hope we can quarantine as few kids as possible. We don't want kids missing school unnecessarily. I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody wants to wear a mask longer than they have to. It's my opinion that we continue this until next month, so we do it again. I'd like to hear from the rest of the board if you guys have anything else to say.
So there's a couple of things I want to talk about. One is 2 months ago, we strongly agreed that our staff needs to have their own private health information theirs. We weren't going to ask for that I want to, I don't know if we need to have a vote or just a direction, but that student private health information remain theirs. There was a sense of teacher having to raise hands if they were vaccinated or not vaccinated that has caused issues. So I wanted to go over like clearly what the direction is, that we are not doing that.
Yes, thank you for that, Ms. Holt. And it is important to note that this expectation mentioned as it relates to disclosing vaccination status or personal health information applies to staff and students alike. In instances where that expectation is not met, we have immediately addressed that and follow up in those spaces. But I appreciate you bringing to light that particular piece. When we talk about students and their personal health information, or we're talking about staff members and their personal health information, that is confidential unless they choose to voluntarily disclose it when it's appropriate. So just as an example, you may be vaccinated, but you don't have to disclose that information. Even if you are part of a contact tracing investigation, you can choose to do so because it changes the quarantine guidance for you. But again, that personal and private health information should remain as such. And so that affirmation exists for students and staff. So I appreciate you bringing that. Thank you, ma'am.
Another thing is, it was Saturday, my daughter came to me and said the back of her legs were hurting really bad. And I said, well, what's that from? Were you exercising? Were you guys running at school? Oh yeah, we were running. We ran a whole lot on Friday. And I dug a little further because I knew it was raining Friday. Were you running in the gym? Yes, I was running in the gym. My child was running so hard. Now she's a gymnast. She goes to gymnastics twice a week, that it hurt her legs and had a mask on the whole time. Was never given the opportunity to take it off. And I know this board has had a discussion on this before. I'd rather them sit there and color a sheet than run with a mask on in a gym. That it's such physical activity that it hurts my very fit kids' legs. So I wanted to have some discussion on that, where the direction is with, I thought we'd addressed this before. Where's the direction to coaches and PE teachers?
Yes, we've provided explicit direction to our coaches and to our PE teachers as it relates to participation in aerobic or anaerobic activities, or the conditions that are created in that space, and talk about children inside locations. Conditions do depend, and so specific examples of that, we want to make sure that we're bringing those to light of school administrators so that they can be looked into directly. We've provided explicit guidance when it comes down to students participating in aerobic and anaerobic activity, where face can be removed from participating in that activity.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure before I addressed that. And then the last thing, which I think is probably going to be a robust conversation, our kids are suffering. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read the email that came out. I think we got it on Friday from Ed and C. And it's talking about the test results that are in, and it goes over those in detail. If I'm not mistaken, I think it said kindergarten through third grade. They're testing out at a low that they've not tested out. It's been 10 years prior. They're way behind. And so there's a couple of things I'd like to address with that. One is, it is my understanding that students are eating lunch in their classrooms. Some are going outside, some are in the cafeteria, etc. And they're in the same pod of kids while they're in the cafeteria or in their room that they're sitting by, going to PE, going to music, etc., to reduce, the likelihood of transmission. I do not understand why kindergarten through grade 3 could not do a phonics lesson with their mask off. These kids are falling behind. They're falling behind at a rate that is impossible for us to catch them up in. And if they if they can sit and eat for somebody for 30 minutes, I mean, that's over the 15 minutes anyway. If one of those kids are COVID positive, they're all quarantining regardless. So why can't they sit in that same pod and do a phonics lesson so we can get these kids caught back up? That's one question. The other one is, can we allocate, I know, and we just kind of talked about this before in personnel with not having a lot of like subs and people that are coming in because of the pandemic. Our retired teachers are, not as active as what they once were, but can we hire, reading recovery specialists more than what we have with the current funds that we have to address this learning loss? I am really worried about these younger kids.
Just to follow up, I have started to volunteer at an elementary school 1 day a week, and we're going over C's and B's and D's and rug and Doug and bug and I'm like, now the B sounds like the D, and it's got and it looks just like it, but it's just the straight lines on the other side, and we're learning all these words and everything. It is so difficult when you have a mask on. I mean, for the child and for me, and Amy and I were discussing that Ed Weekly piece, and we're sentencing our children to this is a life sentence. I mean, they're going to be behind this year. They're going to be behind. They're not going to be where they were next year. They won't be where they were the year after. We need to think about this. I mean, and we took a school visit. I'm not going to name any schools. I was asking the kids, where are y'all going? Well, we're going back to our classroom to eat our lunch. I said, okay, so you're going to sit at your desk where they were sitting all day long, and just to expound, and they're going to eat lunch however long the lunch is. So it's okay to go to your desk, which is separated as best we can apart. So it's okay to go there and eat lunch, but it's not okay to go there and learn to read, and learn to speak, and learn to spell, and learn. So, I mean, does COVID take a lunch break? Is it okay? So I'm like, I'm having trouble understanding all of this. And, and I'm a guy that likes compromise. I like working together. I like, and one of the slides up there said a modification. I mean, is there any way that we can discuss helping out these younger kids and maybe taking them off while they're at their desks? And if they move around, I mean, they're in the same pod. They're going to lunch in this. They have it's amazing. I mean, they're like robots, but they mind, and they go to a certain point in the hallway and they stop. And then they look back, and then the teacher gives a little hand signal or something. And they go, and they're all in a line. They mind. They don't get out of line. But they're so is there any flexibility that we can talk about having these kids that are always together? And it's okay to eat lunch at your desk, but it's not okay to take your mask off at your desk when you're out of lunch. I'm like, what? So
Can I address that? I do agree there's a certain hypocrisy if you're saying that COVID takes a break during lunch. Of course it doesn't. But I think that we're limiting the exposure. I mean, obviously when they eat, they can't wear a mask. I mean, that makes no sense at all, right? I know that Dr. Fry and I have talked a lot about phonics. I mean, she might be the better person to address this, because I definitely agree that during phonics we need to see mouths. So I'm going to leave that for the professional for that. But I have visited think I've been to 4 or 5 of the elementary schools already. And having taught 2nd, 4th, and 5th grade, as I'm walking around these rooms, these kids are exactly, I was at Fletcher Elementary, was it last week? I was with you. I mean, we were walking around these rooms, and the kids were exactly where they should be the first week in October. I mean, I lived that curriculum. I lived that pacing guide. And I was asking them questions, and they were answering intelligently and coherently. And I tried to talk to as many kids to the point where I think Mr. Bridges and Mr. Craven were probably dragging me out of rooms at some cases. But because I'm aware of the curriculum of those grades, and I know where they should be, when I was speaking to those kids, they were where they should be. I mean, is every child? No, you're right, Amy. Every child is not exactly where they should be. And I do agree that the phonics situation is something we really need to look at. But overall, I was actually surprised at how on track they were for where we should be at 9 weeks.
I would suggest that you email some elementary teachers. I have had a lot, and in fact, I had a meeting, my daughter's in 4th, had a meeting with her teacher, and her stating that we've had to just go right back because I'm going down to 3rd grade to teach. My kids are lost when I tell them things that they should know. They're completely lost. I've had to reteach what they should have learned in 3rd grade, in some instances 2nd. I mean, some kids, yeah, sure, but there's a lot of kids that are way behind. And the younger, I'm hearing a lot more from like 1st grade teachers and 2nd grade teachers with the pronouncing. And
may I ask a question? What does our testing data say as far as where we were 2 years ago and where we were at the end of last year? We have that data, do we not?
We do, it just came out actually.
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's what I was referring to.
I think we really need to look at our data to see, you know, what are our data sets say in comparison to each other before we start jumping off the ledge here.
I don't think having them take their masks off at their desk is jumping off a ledge. I mean, it's just, you know.
Dr. Brown, can you talk about that? The NC, it just came out, some of the information on where our students are in Henderson County.
I can, and Dr. Fry can correct me where I'm wrong. I think there are a couple of things that I would just offer for context, and the most notable one is when you compare year-over-year data, you should expect to see differences between what happened during a pandemic and remote learning and what we've dealt with during this period of time and now. Those are the very simple realities of it. In light of that, what we do recognize is we're having to target very specifically instructionally based on our work for students who are not progressing at grade level or have gaps in their instruction, as they mentioned, or are challenged by the learning spaces that they've been over that period of time. And so while we have some data sets that reflect students having made appropriate progress or exceeded what that progress is, that isn't the same for everybody because the conditions have not been the same for everybody. So when Dr. Fry and her team are analyzing individual data, student performance data or grade level data, literacy performance or otherwise, what we're recognizing is that you do have children all across the varied spectrum, and thinking about literacy instruction is a perfect example of that. Early service literacy instruction, that's why in-person learning has become so profoundly important. Think about what we heard from our teachers and our families and from our students about trying to learn from literacy instruction on a device for the first time, or interacting in that space for the first time. That has been an evolution of our process, is thinking about, so how do we improve upon each of those pieces? How do we make those decisions instructionally that allow students to be more and more successful? Specific to Dr. Revis's question, and I'm glad to let Dr. Fry expound upon it, is we've been looking at very targeted data when we start talking about where students are and picking them up. There is a philosophical point that I'll make before I do that, though, and this is really, really important. The language behind requires a comparative, as if everybody else was moving forward and our kids just weren't. And I want to state out loud, the men and women serving in our system didn't stop trying to serve students based on everything we've dealt with. Has it been impossibly difficult at times? Yes. Have students and families struggled with it? Yes. But it's not as if the rest of the world was operating at normal pace And we just decided to stop for a period of time. And I think our children and our families and our educators deserve credit for that, because behind sometimes is the implication of how we've always just used data as a comparison. Much was challenged by everybody during that. And what we have been committing to is serving every student wherever they are. If you are reading on a 3rd grade level right now in a 5th grade class, we're picking you up right there. We're not complaining about the fact that you don't read like a 5th grader. The reality is we serve you as who you are in that space. And so I think there is a philosophical point to be made in terms of understanding that component, and then also making sure that we're being very deliberate about specific data sets that inform the instructional decisions. And so, Dr. Fry, do you want to talk about that piece for a moment?
I would only add that in all of our EOGs and EOCs, we looked at data that we were above the state average in all areas. And to the reading specialist question, I will say that 7 of our elementary schools do use their Title I funds to fund an interventionist. And by using the term interventionist, then that also makes them available to assist in other content areas such as math, where we really see more concern because, as Dr. Revis knows very well, the English language arts curriculum spirals, and the mathematics really is the one that builds upon previous knowledge. So having an interventionist really allows them more versatility within a school.
Okay, repeat with the very first part of what you said about achieving state level, above state level.
Certainly. So we were advised to exercise caution in using this year's data because there were so many variables. However, we do celebrate the fact that in all of our EOGs, end of grade and end of course assessments, we were above the state average.
Okay, and what was the state average?
So it would vary for each area.
In the paper, it came out and said our students were testing at 50.7 proficient. Half. That is it. We don't need to celebrate half of our kids being above average. That is not how we roll. I read that article and I was like, I can't believe we're celebrating that we're 50% proficient. I mean, that was in the paper on the headline. I was like, and I heard it on somewhere else. We're all celebrating that we were, and I can't believe we've gone to that level. I mean, we've got to do better.
That is certainly not where we are accustomed to being, nor where we
What are we
plan to
normally?
stay. We have, it really depends, depending upon grade level, or if it's EOG or EOC. We traditionally find ourselves in the upper 25%, and I'll share some data in just a little bit about our graduation rate. We're super, but certainly that's not where we want to stay.
So, I mean, would it seem smart to put some of our ESSER funds towards more of these readings, interventionalists or whatever you call them, to come in and help the other 6 schools that don't have them, the other 6 elementary?
That would be
A what?
planting issue. And funding wise, I don't think you could do that.
We have
If
ESSER
they're
funds.
using their own Title I monies for interventionists, then you can't come on top of that to other schools who've chosen not to use their Title I funds and give them.
And what I would add is this is exactly kind of the model of how summer learning was defined, right? When we're looking at every staffing model to support, and you've seen and heard the yields that we receive for students that participate in that, over a year's worth of growth associated with their academic progress and otherwise. So to answer your question very specifically, is evaluating every staffing up makes sense. Certainly we have to take that in light of what staffing is actually available, because we have positions right now that we're working toward making sure that remain filled and supported in that way. But looking at every option that supports interventionalists, supporting direct instruction, supporting teacher work. It's much in the way that we've provided other positions in that way. We will be evaluating that throughout this period because the ESSER dollars that you're speaking to were designed for that very time. When we talk about that period of 3 years that these resources are available, this board will be involved in discussions throughout that 3-year period about what the needs are at this time for that work.
Right, yeah,
Yes,
because there's a lot of kids that did not go to those summer programs. And so we've got them in school now. And then if it's an issue that 7 schools are using money for Title I for this, let them use their money for something else and we'll fund all 13. I mean, that money is directly for the students and for, bringing them back where they need to be. I just want to make sure we're spending that money wisely.
Let me mention one other thing. I'm looking at these numbers, and I know people are so passionate. They say, look at the science. And I hear that. If I hear that one more time from one more person, I don't want to look at the science because these people tell me look at the science, and these people tell me look at the science. I'm done with looking at the science. I'm telling you, I'll look at the data right here. And if I do the math, 0.003 were positive this week. 0.003. 0.003. So then I'm like, okay, this is a virus, much like the flu. Exactly like the flu. The flu is a COVID. Okay. It's never going to go away. So at what point are we okay? 0.003 is less than flu season. And we're still saying you have to wear masks all day long. And we're still saying, I mean, when are we going to get to a point that it's okay, fine? I mean, so I'm just looking at the data and I'm looking at these numbers and I'm like, okay, look, if y'all don't want to go that way, that's fine. But at least let's compromise a little bit. Let's get these masks off these kids, these elementary kids that are learning to read and learning to speak and learning to, I mean, because you can't even, so I'm just saying, let's just work together. And I'd make them, I mean, you make the motion, but I mean, do we need to discuss it? I want to see where we're at. I mean, because we need to make a motion and modify it, in my opinion, and let's just see. And if y'all don't, that's fine. But I'm telling you, it's never going to get to 0, ever.
How long is a typical phonics lesson? Anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, probably. Yeah. And it's only K2. We don't typically do phonics in 3rd grade as we know it. However, we may this year because of
yes, you
going
probably
back
will
from last year. But and what is our time limit? Our time frame is 15 minutes without mask within.
So, but they're eating lunch, are they staying together in the classroom like they are in lunch, or can we mandate that they're doing that so that, because I mean, I know it's going out on a limb here, but my thought is, I mean, I'd like to see masks off all the way, or I would like to let the parents decide what's best for their kid all the way through 12th grade, but I know some of us don't want to go that direction, so what if the elementary kids wore masks in the hallways, going to the bathroom, going to lunch, and when they're at their desks, they can take them off?
I mean, when I'm helping out,
if they want,
the group moves together and they sit at the same, and it's 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. I mean, they just go in groups and they go in groups. So fine, if they get up, take the mask off. But when they're sitting down and not moving around and reading and spelling and learning B's and D's and C's, and take the mask.
What's going to be the question if and when we do get a vaccine for those 2 and up to 11? How many of our parents in Henderson County are going to
very low
get their students that shot or that
very
vaccine?
Low. That's why this is always going to be here. We're always going to have numbers here.
So if a John Doe has a vaccine, does he have to wear a mask? If Mary Alice doesn't have a vaccine, what are we going to do? What's she going to do? So you've got that scenario to come up later, maybe as science goes on, to develop a vaccine for those younger students.
So I'm going to use the bad S word, the science word. If you look at science, typically people look at cohort studies. And I know a parent had sent in a cohort study, and I actually fact-checked it because I do that. And it was of a school system in Lancaster, South Carolina. I don't know if you guys read that one. And it basically had the same demographics, same number of, had 13,500 students in there. And they have been mask optional since school started. They have had 2 teacher deaths and 1 child death from COVID. And when I'm looking at a cohort study, you might not want to call it science. I don't care what you call it. I call it somebody's child died of COVID. I call it 2 teachers dying of COVID. So there is that science word.
Dr. Bryant, do you have any recommendations other than than continuing our current policy as it relates to phonics or anything else as far as masks go?
No, sir, but as it relates to that, I think the board's discussion here gives us an opportunity to present modifications that meet that definition, especially as you talk about the literacy instruction and otherwise, because Ms. Holt's question is a very good one. I want to be able to affirm the exact conditions in every environment, not just the one we happen to visit. And so when we start talking about what it looks like in each of those individual environments, if we're changing the administrative expectations, because the board seeks for a change in that condition, we'd be glad to be prepared to offer you that. But as it stands right now, no, sir, it would be the recommendation you see.
Thank you.
Odds for the tracking, your tracking.
Any other questions as it relates to agenda item?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's imperative. I would move that we, I'll start with having masks off for kindergarten through 3rd at their desk during phonics time.
Is that a motion that you'd like to make?
Yeah, I just did.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that motion that's on the floor? All right, I'm going to do this by voice vote. So the motion is to optional for K through 3rd, and then 4 through 12 would be mandatory, or continuing as we are.
No, I'm not making that.
So just K through 3.
Kindergarten through 3rd, taking them off during phonics time.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion, please? We did, yes, ma'am. Second.
I would just like to say that I would like to say the word direct and explicit phonics instruction. Not just doing a little worksheet.
Right, yeah.
Direct and explicit.
Sure.
phonics instruction.
So wait, is that a new motion?
He just wants it to say direct and explicit.
Also, we should put at the end of that, if we rise in K2 COVID, K3 COVID, then we'll be meeting or something to take.
Let me make sure that I understand the motion again. Okay, it's been modified here. So K through 3 can wear their mask optional during a phonics lesson.
Direct and explicit phonics lesson.
Is that what you were seconding? Okay. Is there any other discussion?
And then you could call an emergency meeting if we needed to do that.
I have been quick to do those.
But can I just clarify? So we were talking about that 15 to 25 minute zone where we do need, talking about that 15 to 25-minute zone of phonics instruction where they're staying in the same pods that they stay in for lunch, so we do not mix up our contact tracing.
Yes.
Just for my understanding, Dr. Bryant, you would like for us to wait till you could see the conditions for all 13 of our schools before we made such a motion, correct?
What I would ask of the board, if this as you think about this specific direction, is to give us some window of time, even if that's 24 hours, to provide explicit guidance to all of our schools so that those conditions could be met. Because I hear us talking about what we would want that to look like, but in terms of making sure that that could be delivered and that expectation be met, and that we would be able to answer questions from staff who would all need to know what that would mean, we would need some period of time to do so.
How about next Monday? We would start it on next Monday.
That would be greatly appreciated.
right?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. No, ma'am. Again, that's what I'm speaking to is, so when we start talking about the conditions in each environment during phonics instruction or otherwise, we would have to put some very explicit guardrails around what that looks like.
18.
Yeah, like if they're not in their, if they're not doing that now, if they sit by, student A, B, C, and D at lunch, that at least in phonics time, that's who they're sitting by. If they have their mask off, with their mask off.
That's kind of what I'm saying, is that we
Yeah.
would need some time to put those,
Yep.
put that guidance
And
in
I'm
place.
fine with next, not 24 hours, next Monday is fine.
And you and your leadership team are ready to implement that by next Monday if this board approves that?
We work at the direction of the board. Yes, ma'am.
And I would just like to say a couple other things. I think it's critically important, particularly in kindergarten and particularly for students who have speech delays, for the child to see the formation, lips, tongue, all that. So I want to make sure that what we're doing is we're getting during that critical window of when that teacher is showing the letter sound formation. Because I can teach phonics through lots of modalities. It doesn't have to be me standing right here. It's only when I am introducing that letter sound formation is it critical. We have lots of little video songs, games, dances, movement. That's not critical, but it is critical. And I would also like to say, if a child is taking individual speech therapy, that's a critical time as well.
So we're adding that to the mission as well.
I just brought that one out.
Well, what I appreciated what Dr. Revis is saying, and she's speaking to the expertise that she has, is those are the details that have to be communicated
Right.
effectively if and when the board makes a determination that there is a opportunity for this modification to the expectation, then we have to be able to outline what are all the conditions by which that's true.
Right.
So that staff can meet that expectation and that parents can understand what that condition looks like. So when parents are making informed choices about what that means, they need to understand what that means for us. So that's the important part of what we hear you saying.
And I have one little caveat. I don't know if you had a chance to investigate the mask that I sent you a picture of when I was at Upward and that they were using. It didn't fog up. It was the clear one. A teacher who is in kindergarten, first, second, or speech therapist that is not comfortable, they're high risk for whatever reason, is not comfortable taking their mask off. I would like to buy those masks for those individual teachers. So it doesn't have to be a board thing. I'm glad to donate the money and buy them myself. I can order them. Amazon has them, and they do not fog up. They're great. So, because we're going to have some teachers who are, I have a high-risk baby at home, and I'm too nervous to do that. I think it's important that the kids see their mouth.
Teachers, I think about phonics, or is it hearing it from the teacher?
What we know is every teacher's advocating for the best environment possible. I wouldn't define it in that way. What teachers know is that it's very difficult. The letter formation piece that you heard Dr. Rev saying is to be able to communicate that when you're wearing a face covering is challenging for literacy instruction. That's the reality of it. What I think every educator wants right now is the best possible learning environment for their children. And they want to ensure that they are the safest environments as well. So I've not met an educator that doesn't want both those things. Everybody's individual feelings about that are their individual feelings about it, but I've not met one who is in public education that doesn't want what's best for every child.
is everyone clear, on this motion? I want to make sure that you're clear on it before I ask for your vote.
Well, if I restate it, Amy, tell me what I'm missing. I think that what you're saying is that during explicit phonics instruction, when the children need to see the teacher's mouth, that the students are staying in their same lunch pod, so we're not driving the health department crazy, and they're able to see their teacher's mouths, they're able to form the letters. Teachers who are not comfortable, I'm with you, I will help chip in for those masks for teachers who are not comfortable and we're able to see, you know, at least a window so we could see their lips. I know that Dr. Ryan and I have discussed this at length. So that, during that period of the day, that's what this motion is about, is that period.
Correct.
Okay.
That's like 15 minutes, period.
Yes.
Is everybody clear?
I mean, I think it's important, like, kids see their teacher, but teachers see when they're not, you know, the kid's mouth. And even if it's, you know, I don't want my child to take their mask off, but, you know, they can pull it down and say, you know, broke, and so the teacher can see that.
I don't want to specifically say a specific time, because when I'm teaching elementary, I mean, they're going in different pods. I'm going for 20 minutes with a group, and then they rotate, and then, so, I mean, I just want to be very careful that we don't start the stopwatch when we take our masks off. I mean, I teach way long, I help way longer than 15 minutes.
So for your pod, it might be your 15 minutes for that pod when
That's
they
right.
have them off.
And then they rotate.
And then they read silently and put their mask back
That's
on.
right. Okay, that's fine.
You know.
Yeah, but it's long. It's 15 minutes for each student, but it's a total of longer for the combined. Does that make sense? Okay, that's fine. To keep it like it is, if the people are sitting at my table, they can take their masks off. And if they rotate throughout the hour, that's fine, but it'll be a total of 15, 20 minutes that each child will have.
Be able to receive that phonics.
Right.
Right.
And they'll also be able to see the other children in their pod making that sound, which is really important to see your peers as well as your teachers. So I think that's really good.
Rod, do you have anything to add in on this?
And to be clear, Mr. Chairman, so for grades 4 through 12,
Well, I'm sure there's another motion
Yeah.
coming, but this is a K through 3. This is a K through
just
3
dealing with-
policy right now. But conditions would remain the same for K through 3 other than that time period or that lesson specified, correct? Okay. Ms. Case, are you okay? You understand what's going on? And Mr. Bridges, everybody understands what this motion's about? All right, I'm going to take a voice vote unless anybody else has any other comments. Yes or no, Mr. Bridges?
Yes.
Yes or no, Ms. Case? Yes or no, Mrs. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Egoff? Sir. Ms. Caskey?
Yes.
Dr. Revis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That'll pass 7-0.
Sorry.
It's a start. Now, now that that's done, we are still on the motion that was presented to us for everyone else by Dr. Bryant, and I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. Move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the continuation of the current face covering guidance as presented, aside from the phonics lessons for K through 3.
A second.
Is there any more discussion on this matter?
Is there a time limit on that?
Well, we just made it previously. Yes, sir. The 15th. Yeah, 1 month, because we have to vote on it again in November.
The 8th.
Yeah, we have to vote on it.
I want to just say, you know what, bringing up these numbers, 0.003. I mean, it's not going to get any better. It's not, I mean, it's not going to be ever 0. We can't be scared and wanting it to be 0 before we take masks off. It's not going to be 0, ever. Not going to be 0 for flu. This is not going to be. That's pretty good. Go ahead.
And 18% of that is what was the school transfer.
Hey, you got a second?
I do have a second. Is there any more information or discussion amongst the motion that I just made? If there is none, yes or no, Mr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mrs. Case? Mrs. Holt?
No.
Mr. Egolf?
No, sir.
Mrs. Caskey?
Yes.
And Dr. Revis?
Yes.
I'm a yes. That passes 5-2. All right, moving on. We are going to approval of a sole source. Bernie, I hope you can follow that up.
This will bring equal news time, I'm sure.
Well, give us a second, Bernie. Just hold on. Is she? Oh, that's cool.
Must be a first.
I would like to look. This is completely off topic, but the kids that didn't get those kindergarten shirts.
Oh, that's a good, yeah, we did talk about that.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to, well, we're missing people. We got a quorum. All right, sole source, take it away.
All right. I guess I was wrong about the news. There's not quite as many people. These next two items are sort of tied together. The first one is the sole source that we've had most months we've been bringing to you. Thank you for increasing the threshold to have fewer vendors in this list.
Yes.
But this month we do have two. It's Newzella and RTI International for sole source that have been approved through DPI. And as we'll see in the next one, we have the corresponding contracts to go with them. You had already approved the contract for RTI International in concept, but since that was before the sole source was approved, we wanted to bring it back to your attention to get that in the correct timeline, if you will. And I'm sure Dr. Fry would be glad to answer any questions you have about the companies in particular.
I love Newzella, so I'm gonna help you out there.
Yeah, my kid uses it all the time. He loves it.
Awesome.
Well,
It is, and it's also available on science social.
they determined the,
I could send you some of their detailed information. I couldn't do it justice to explain it to you here, but it's the only source that we have found that does provide leveled readers in those content areas. It was especially valuable to us last year and continues to be so as we work with learning recovery and with students who are absent or on quarantine.
that we can use over and over, or is this the 1 year?
We have written it into our ESSER grant as a 3-year commitment. And what I really like about that is if teachers know it's not going away, they're more likely really to invest time in learning to use it as a valuable resource. It interfaces nicely with Google Classroom to link there. So we're very pleased with it.
Other questions? All right, I'll take a motion if anybody thinks.
Go ahead.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the specified vendors as vendors under the sole source exemption guideline.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 6-0. Right, contract, Bernie?
All right, yes, it's the same two companies, and here is the contract that goes with them. And the reason they are being brought to you is not necessarily because of the individual year, but because they are multi-year contracts, thereby crossing that $90,000 threshold. And as we mentioned, they are, Newzella is, that Dr. Fry was just speaking to, that 3-year contract. That's,
Any comments or anything on that? Take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve attached contract with the specified vendors.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. All right, construction update, Mr. Carl Taylor. Yeah, if you go, you can do it. Oh, yeah. Whatever. Nah, that matter, man. Oh. Slides off a little bit.
Good evening, board members. Happy to present you with a construction update tonight. So we will once again begin with our largest project, which again is at Hendersonville High School, where the renovation there in the Stillwell building continues. So those ongoing, the ongoing work in there continues to be revolving around the sprinkler system, the HVAC work, the framing, drywall, and then the wiring of that building as well. Here are some pictures from inside Stillwell. First of all, you can see where the construction is beginning for the ADA ramp up to the stage, as well as a renovation of the elevator shaft. Here are pictures that show that framing inside Stillwell, as well as the roughing in for the HVAC work and the plumbing and electrical work as well. On the exterior, the work on the brick continues, where on the south and the west sides are complete, but here we are on the north side of the building going out to the courtyard area where that tuck pointing work is continuing there. Mr. Egoff.
Quick question before we jump off Hendersonville, and this might be a county commissioner question, but do you know of any over budget items that we found more troubles, contingency money that we've had to use, anything that we haven't budgeted for yet as far as Old Stillwell?
What I can speak to in terms of the budget, because again, you're right, the money does come from the county level. In the meetings that I've attended, yes, there is some contingency money that's been spent for various items, but nothing large has occurred that would cause any high level of concern at this point in time with that project.
What I've heard, it's been very little thing. The main concern and the reason that contingency was in there is the water, the spring that's underneath that property. What they've done is basically created a French drain to divert that, spit it out. So I know that was a little bit, but nothing, like you said, nothing huge has come up, and everything's gutted.
Not done.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
We're not done, but
say
you...
that. Well, I wouldn't get there.
The scary stuff is...
Well, the scary stuff is, and the good thing is, if I'm correct, the auditorium will be done in February, right?
That is what I recall from the original timeline.
So the auditorium is much closer than the rest of the school, but it looks great over there. Awesome. Continue on, sir.
All right. The other MRTS project that was going on over the summer was at Rugby Middle School, and we continue to inch closer to being able to say that project is complete. Some final pieces that we are waiting on is some additional components there for the receptionist desk, reinstalling the kiln in the art room, and then as you may know, some building materials are on extreme back orders, and for us at this project it is 3 doors that we continue to wait on. So once those all items are taken care of, then that project would be complete. I can give you an update tonight as well on the Upward project. This is one of that also will go through MRTS funding, and it was delayed when COVID slowed or kind of put that project on hold back in March 2020. And so last week we had an initial meeting out there at the school with Carolina Specialties Construction as they have been awarded that contract. And so just the initial conversations of that secure entry taking place there at Upward Elementary. Right now, what we can say tentatively is that the project start date would be sometime in the spring. Carolina Specialties is beginning to look at the items that will be needed to complete that work, what the time frame is to be able to acquire those items, and starting to schedule a more firm date of when that work would begin and be completed.
And let me be sure that we have received all funds for MRTS monies to be able to complete that work as part of our property swap with, property swap with the county.
some other MRTS projects that are taking place during this school year. First of all are some paving projects, and you can see there the 5 schools where some key areas have been identified for paving to take place, and so that contractor will be Tar Heel Paving completing that work. We have a couple of roofing projects at West and East that will be completed in the spring. Right now, the possible start date would be in March due to, again, supply shortages. Some projects that are taking place in-house with funds with from Henderson County Public Schools. First of all, at North Henderson and Apple Valley, that auditorium seating project that you all approved with this current budget year. The RFP has been sent out, and so the bid opening is taking place this week, so we'll review those bids and look at awarding a contract. And so I look forward next month to being able to provide you with more additional information regarding that project. The other ones at East and West Henderson, the auditorium sound and lighting upgrades that you all approved as well. We're working on the RFP for that work so that we can go ahead and start getting it lined up as well. The other exciting project that we've talked about the last couple of months, again, we are getting close to wrapping up, is with our food services freezer replacement. And so we started receiving and beginning to install those, or we will receive and begin installing those components October 18th, with a target date of completing the installation October 25th. And then a fun fact for today is that it takes a week for that freezer to climatize to where we can actually use it. So your home fridge and freezer, 24 hours. This larger scale one, a week. You're welcome. This time I'll take any questions.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Equity update, Dr. Wendy Fry. Please.
My pleasure to bring to you the equity update. Have lots of pictures to share with you this afternoon. First of all, members of the instructional services staff were pleased to begin delivering plaques of appreciation for our community partners.
I know
Take
her.
a look at our lovely Flat Rock Playhouse representative.
I know her.
Zaniac, Bullington, City of Hendersonville, Chimney Rock, Pisgah Forest, Inside Out, Historic Johnson Farm, The Riveter, Mills River Park, Hendersonville YMCA, Cradle of Forestry, Research Center. What I will tell you is that we still need to deliver a couple of our plaques, so that's not an exhaustive list, but you can probably tell these plaques simply say proud supporter of HCPS summer learning, and these folks were so appreciative of these plaques, and I know we'll display them with pride. They made all the difference.
I just want to say, you know, the summer school was put together really quick. You and your team did a phenomenal job, and for these folks in our community to give our kids different learning experiences is amazing. And really the proof was in the pudding and how they did at the end of that program. And I look forward to trying to and continuing that through the years to a lot like we just talked about. Get our kids up to wherever they need.
Absolutely. I appreciate you saying that. That's our goal as well. And that's a wonderful segue into, we recently, through Hanover Research, I work with them, asked them to conduct a program evaluation because we want to grow and learn from this year's summer learning and make it even stronger and more effective as we think about planning for next year. So what we found from Hanover are some really wonderful recommendations. And I can't say that any of them were surprising, but were rather affirming for ways that we knew we wanted to strengthen or grow. We need to take a look at flexible scheduling and shorter days. We know that those days were difficult for many families and for many younger children. You'll remember, though, that the state told us how many days summer learning had to be this year, so we didn't have a lot of wiggle room there. We have reason to believe we'll have more flexibility rolling into this summer. Also, we need to do a better job of communicating with parents about the academic ties with community learning. We sold the fun. Remember the word fun? You know, Mr. Taylor said he had a fun fact tonight. Well, summer learning was fun also. I think our fun fact may have been more fun. But we really sold the fun, right? But we didn't make intentional connections with families about how that fun truly was integrated into the core academic focus that we were making, and we will do a better job with that next year. We will continue to include our Rockstar community partners, and we will make sure that our parents and our community partners have a clear understanding of what our goals are. We put that program together pretty quickly because we didn't have a lot of time to put it together, but now that we have more time, we can be more intentional with our communications, and we will do that. We're proud of this community partner quote that you see at the bottom. I just got a lot of feedback similar to that. Some successes from this research: 99% of staff think that after being in summer learning, their students were better prepared to start in the fall.
There's one teacher that said no.
You know, there must have been one, just one, but I'll take it. I will take it. Large majorities of both parents and staff agreed that, as you see here, I won't read the entire slide, but basically that we delivered what we intended to deliver. Most parents and staff agreed that it was engaging and that it wasn't really just a review of previous material, but that we did provide some acceleration. And finally, that we're satisfied with the time for physical activity and just that overall experience, and that it was engaging. And I wanted this board to know that we have been recognized at a state level and have been asked to present about our summer learning program at this state conference. We just found out last week, so we will be proud to represent you in that way. As Dr. Bryant shared with you earlier, our water safety program is well underway, and this is just a synopsis of it. I'm sure that you have full understanding of what the program is about, but if you're asked about it, this is an excellent resource to reference, and then a link to our Molly's story on the website that she does such a good job with. Here's another fun picture. We're so proud of that program. Also wanted to share with you this evening that at the state board meeting last week, the four-year cohort graduation data was released, and I'm proud to tell you that we were 10th in North Carolina with 92.7%. And while I don't know the exact number, just as a reminder, in Henderson County, we have the requirement that our students get over and above the state required credits for graduation. So even with that extra rigor in place, we were 10th in North Carolina. So super proud of our students and our administrators, our teachers, all the hard work that went into that. So this one, we had the great pleasure just a few days ago of meeting with band and orchestra teachers to let them know about this board's commitment, Dr. Bryant's commitment to providing equity and removal of barriers. So here's a screenshot of our meeting, and I have to tell you, I got choked up in this meeting because rarely do you have the opportunity to tell teachers that you are going to be able to offer them such a game-changing opportunity for their students. It was such a treat, and in fact, after we finished telling them that all that this would do for students, to include the elementary fares, the substitutes, the transportation costs, supplies and materials, the mouthpiece kit so that students could try out an instrument, and then the 6th grade orchestra and band instruments for students. We got through that list, and one of the teachers raised his hand on screen and he said, "Can I just restate what I think I heard you say? I just want to make sure that we did not dream this." It just was such a treat, and we certainly emphasized with them that it was because of the commitment of this board. Dr. Bryant, would you add anything to that celebration?
What I would add to that is, again, if you can see the joy on Dr. Fry's face, it's your direction and support that empowers this work. And we don't often get to take you into the moments where you get to say, here's what the board said was important. Remove barriers, remove barriers, remove barriers, and do that with the resources that are available. Be able to celebrate and share that is particularly powerful, because what we know is highly engaged students find success across all platforms. And it's about finding the ways in which. So we're really proud to be able to. Seeing that joy is pretty powerful.
Well, it looks like Steve Sigmund even
I was
lit off fireworks.
He did. He did. He had a different background, and then
just
after
threw some fireworks up there.
did.
Awesome, I like it.
He did. But it was
I
a
bet you they're
wonderful
Disney fireworks too.
moment. They might very well be. I will point out that I wasn't the only one choked up, because as soon as the meeting was over, Scott Moore and Marcy Wilson came over to my office, and they had big tears in their eyes too. You can look at their expressions right now and see the emotion. It was a wonderful opportunity. So thank you. That concludes the equity update. Appreciate your support.
Thank you so much.
Whose idea was it to do the swimming?
There was
I mean, we'd had something good.
certainly this board had a lot to do with it. What we know is, and I'm proud to share this, is that Mrs. Holt, Commissioner McCall, Councilwoman Jennifer Hensley, and L.K. Patton, who's the executive director at the YMCA, had an initial conversation that is the seeds you want to plant, right? It is an opportunity for that to extend. The Safety Around Water program has existed nationally on behalf of the YMCA, and then when this board invited LK to present as part of the program highlight, and it was this board that stepped in and said, let's do that very work. And so pretty special stuff.
I think the biggest thing for me is that we have to continue it. I think this county needs a recreational swimming facility. I think that second grade is awesome start, but it's just that, a start. I think that we need to have kids of all ages in those pools, learning life-saving skills, and to be able to, if they find themselves in water, to get on their back, to put a doggy paddle to the side and get out and hopefully this community is willing to talk about that further, and we can really reach that goal and provide that for much more than a second.
They've been talking aquatics for 30 or 40 years in this county. You know, we could use a big facility to handle that.
I absolutely agree with you 100%, and I think in the next few months maybe we can start having discussions here that can be appropriate, that we take up to.
One ideal place would be out at Berkeley Mills property.
In my mind right now, sir. We will talk about that at a future date. Thank you very much, Dr. Fry. Scott Rhodes, Child Care Services update. Waiting 2.5 hours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since it's over 6 o'clock, I'll keep all the fun facts I have in my own brain for the rest of the day. I did like your fun fact, though, Mr. Tyler. So it gives me pleasure to present our child care update for last September. The financial projections for September 2021, revenues of $113,365, expenses of $73,581, with an operational profit projection of $39,783. Also have some good news. We also had some operational grant money from DHHS of $108,028. Any questions about child
Love the
care?
good work and keep it going.
Thank you, sir. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, we've got, not to be left out, Mr. Bernie Socha again with financial statements. Loves these amendments to the budget.
Yeah. And
this is the easy one, though.
Yeah, this is just a financial report for September for local current expense, and other restricted funds. So far this year, we have received $9.3 million, and we have spent just over $6 million. I point out in there that part of the reason that our expenditures are down as they are is because we haven't had any of the legislated increases yet, because we haven't received a state budget to this point. We are
How many
optimistic.
How many years has that been?
We're on 3.
On year 3, no budget. Okay.
It is very optimistic that they are in conversation with the governor right now. Hopefully they are ironing out some of these last details, because it would be really nice if we could get ourselves a state budget so that we could get a local budget to you as soon as possible. But we're certainly in very good position at this point. And the other report is for our capital outlay fund. Sort of to piggyback on Mr. Taylor's presentation, we received $455,000 in capital, and we have spent $393,000 on the projects. As he had mentioned, it's the rugby HVAC as being the largest component of that to this point. There are other parts that he mentioned are underway, but we haven't made the expenditures yet. That's why they're not showing up on this document. But we're doing well.
Good deal. Any questions for Mr. Sosha?
I do. I have had several staff members ask me about the retention bonus that we have talked about. And I thought it probably would be good if we could go over that, where we are with it. I know we're waiting on the state.
Oh, my thunder, Ms.
I believe Dr. Bryant has that in his report.
It's actually going to be part of
That
my
was just a segue.
general operation. That's a perfect segue as we talk about that. But as this board, I think, is aware, I believe we shared it with you in the initial, the ESSER applications have to be approved annually. So we submitted one for everything that happened. We had to resubmit, reallocate, and otherwise we are waiting on some state budget approvals as it relates to expectations for state budget. And while we still don't have one of those, what we do know is that this board approved that retention bonus, and so we are prepared to communicate to our employees in the coming days that the retention bonus is going to be paid in February of 2022. And when you think about where we are operationally, October is now behind us because we're in that month. November is when our local supplement is paid. December is a shortened month. Hopefully we'll have a state budget by that point. When we get there, but our employees are asking that very same question. And again, and when we think about retention, the intention behind retention, not just that you started the school year with us, but that you're still with us and that you continue to provide that support. So we plan to pay that in February of 2022, remembering again, it's $2,000 to full-time personnel, $1,000 to part-time personnel. And we'll be putting some official communications to our employees out in the coming days on that. So I appreciate you asking that question.
Yeah, I know. I had shared with one teacher that had asked me that we didn't want to do it at the same time that their
State. Yes.
yeah, the state, and then the supplement. That's what I was looking for, the local supplement, because then they'll get taxed. And he emailed me back, and he was like, "Oh, that's very smart thinking." And I'm like, it wasn't me. It was Bernie.
Well, we definitely been thinking about, I know that everybody, as soon as you start talking about paying a bonus, would like it yesterday, right? Those things are important. But when we do talk about communicating with our employees, we do want to recognize there are various pieces to that puzzle. And one of them was the state budget giving us some direction around. They might have mandated that a bonus was paid to employees. And in those early drafts, it was supposed to be this month. And so in terms of what would be required, delivering on that, again, we have a local supplement that's paid in November, our payroll month in December. So it'll be a nice little after your Christmas, here you go, pay yourself back after your holiday. Yes.
Can you explain your thinking as to why you're doing it at the end of February rather than at?
Primarily when we were looking at our return, February being a month that doesn't have another payroll period associated with it. Again, like our May is the supplement, June's the supplement. Thinking about returning from January and the demands again on our payroll department, February just seemed kind of the ideal position for us. Yes.
Any further questions, comments, concerns? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn?
All
Do you have any general operation?
Just the calendar events that you listed.
Okay.
But they're
I thought you
that's
thought
okay.
that was
You're good.
your.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure. Adjourn.
We have, I think, November 3rd, we having our school visits at 10, I believe. 8th is our next meeting. Veterans Day is coming up, and we've got Thanksgiving, my favorite.
I want to say about that Veterans Day. If you haven't, if any of you haven't ever been to the Forest Lawn and seen the Veterans Day celebration that they have, you need to go because it's pretty awesome. And I think it would be good for anybody to go see that. It's usually at 11 o'clock because it was the 11th hour at the 11th day, blah, blah, blah. But I just think, check the papers to be sure it's at 11 o'clock at Forest Lawn. But those guys really put the work into it, and it's done well.
Very touching program.
Yes, it is.
All right, we have first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.